live. Yay! Can you hear me? Test, test. It's good? Oh, I have even the caption. That was my first time. Yes, I hear you. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome to the stream. Welcome. Welcome. Good to see people already there all around the globe. So nice. So let me do a quick introduction because we have a lot of stuff to cover. So I'm Frank Boucher. I'm a Microsoft Cloud Advocate. I'm based in Canada, east side of Canada. So for me right now it's 7 o'clock p.m. And yeah, so I would like to do some ARM template with you. So ARM first is for Azure Resource Manager template. And I will do my best to read the chat as I'm talking, try to get your question and answer. I may miss some. At the end, I will leave a block of time where I answer your questions. So anybody, I saw earlier someone were already playing a little bit with ARM template. It's one of the way to deploy resources in Azure. Of course, you could do it with a PowerShell script or CLI script or even through the portal. Those are still very valuable way to deploy resources. An ARM template, the beauty of it is it will describe the architecture as code and it will be very easy to reproduce. We'll show you how in a few seconds. I don't have slides today, so I'm opening at Visual Studio Code and we'll spend the full time in it doing code. So it's a demo, the full stream, no slide. It's just this little intro here, and after that is all code, no slides. So infrastructure as code, and you describe that, you will be able very easy to reproduce that. So if you have your dev environment, your QA environment, your prod environment, it will be very easy to reproduce that information with some parameter, like injecting parameters. So you could change a little value, for example, the size of the VM you're using or things like that, because the big one shouldn't be in the dev environment, should be in the prod. So yeah, very nice. And also because it's a text file, it's a very similar to JSON file, you will be able to keep that file with your code. So very easy to versioning. Just make sure. I don't have any PowerPoint, so I will share. I'm taking some. I have a notepad here, but not notepad. I have Visual Studio open. I will share that file after. I have GitHub reference. If I use that, I will share the links also. But I don't have any PowerPoints. Cool. So let's go share my screen and let's get started. Excellent. So my tool of predilection to play with ARM template is Visual Studio Code. You don't need Visual Studio Code to play with ARM template. Like I said, ARM template are very, very close to JSON. In fact, they share the same even extension, but you will see it's more than a JSON file. So I use Visual Studio Code because there's a very cool and very powerful extension, and we'll show you that in 1 second. But of course, any text editor will be good. There's some plugin and very nice functionality also in Visual Studio, the big one, the IDE. I like Visual Studio Code because whatever I'm running in different OS, I still have the tool I love and that it works. So the tricks with Visual Studio Code is to use the extension. So let me right away show you that. So we'll go here. Oh, and there's one thing I completely forgot to do. I will just start my Zoom It tool so I could draw. Cool. So in Visual Studio Code, you have your extension here, so you can go here, and you have the Azure Resource Manager tool, just like that. This tool will give you a lot of functionality. I will show you a lot of those, and I just felt it speed up my process a lot. So we'll be using that tonight in Visual Studio Code. So to get the extension, I have a short link for you. I will paste that in the link in the chat. So there it is. You have it now. So let's remove that. Go back in here. Visual Studio. So an ARM template. It's in. Let's create an ARM template. So I said it have the same extension as JSON. So we'll save this file, and we'll save it in my folder. We'll call it, let's say, deploy Azure.json. Voilà. So now I have it, and for the extension right away, it will know that it's a JSON file, an ARM template. So to build an empty ARM template, you just start typing ARM, and you will have different options. So here in the first one, it's a resource group, and it's the empty template. So we'll click that one, and we'll make my text a little bit bigger. Try to maximize what you see, folks. I used to say cloudies when I stream, but we'll call you folks for now. So this is a ARM template as is most simplest expression. So you have the schema because it's a JSON kind of format, so you still have some kind of validation, and that's very useful. We'll see that later. You have a version, you have the control of that. Parameters, so that's where you will put the list of parameter. Function, variables, we'll play with that in a few seconds. Of course, we're deploying different resources. We're trying to have some resources created in Azure, so we need a list of Azure and outputs that is very, very useful for debugging, and of course to get back the information, because maybe you're deploying a database, you would like to retrieve the connection string to use it in another process, so that's the output will be very useful for. Cloudy, awesome, excellent. Follow me on Twitch. Okay, so this is cool. So now what we can do is add a resource, right? So to add a resource, we'll just go there in the resource. We'll add a line. And now the thing I can do is simply, because I have the extension, I could just start typing again ARM. And then I will say I want, let's say, a storage, so STG. So I have here storage, so I will add that. So now it already went and get the snippet and gave me the snippet for an account storage. Otherwise, I just need to go in the documentation and grab it from there. There's also how they call it again? Quickstart template that you can find on GitHub or the documentation. In fact, both are connected, and you could, let's say you want to deploy a website with a database and you just want to, like, the rough part, you could go there, grab the quick start and tweak it for your personal purposes. But today we're starting from scratch because we want to play a little bit with it. So cool. So let's call it storage storage demo. Excellent. And that's it for now. Let's call it just storage demo. So we have our storage, and now let's just examine a little bit more about it. So we have a type, so that's very important. There's different API version, and if I go here and delete that thing, because I have the extension, I will see all the valid date for my extension. So it's very useful because in time the Microsoft team update those schema. So sometimes you say, hey, I would like to deploy that new version of something, and you don't see it, or maybe you have a validation error. So it's a good timing to check your version. But for us, it was good. Then you could use different tags. tags are just metadata that are very, very useful for you. So you could tag it. A lot of time what I like to do is create a tag and I will call it the owner. And I just put the owner. Why I use that is every once in a while I could ask that person, do you still need that resource? Because if I wait too long, then maybe everybody is afraid to turn off this VM or database because we're not sure anymore if we are still using it. So, you know, tags, when you're deploying that, it's very simple to add more tags. Then the location. Location is where the resource will be deployed. Right now, I will skip it. I don't want to explain too much, but we're going and grabbing the resource group location. So all the resource will be at the same location as the resource group. How it works, we'll get back to that in a short moment, but you know, just saying this is a function. That's why the ARM template are more than just a JSON file. There's function in it. So we're grabbing the information from the resource group and we're having location. There's different properties also. Resource group will return the object and there's also the different properties. So location, same location. Kind, v2, and different SKUs. That's perfect. So now I could right away deploy that thing. How can I deploy it? Well, there's a lot of stuff in the, let's have a quick look to the chat. I don't have the URL. So the autocomplete is the extension, Visual Studio extension that I paste at the beginning. Let's just paste it again. And blah, blah, blah. I had to manually type it. Cool. And also you see I have different, even if I do like, for example, a typo here, yeah, here will tell me I have a validation. And inside Visual Studio Code, if I have the terminal open in problem, I will also see the validation problem. So this is kind of very, very useful when you have like a big document, having those lists, and then you click and it will bring you right to the line. That's amazing. Adding a new thing. Okay, so to deploy, you could bring that, send that to the portal. You could, in fact, did I have the portal open? I don't think so. You could go in portal, deployment. Nope. Not deployment script, deployment. Deployment custom template, import it there, and then deploy it. You could do that from a website or a button with a code snippet here. You could see that in in my notes. I'll just close that. With a little code snippet where you create, this is some markdown. So with sending, you know, those deploy to Azure button, you send the page so to the Azure portal creates, let me zoom on that, create, and then you pass the URL of your template. This one, for example, it's in GitHub. You could pass that, so you could deploy from that. But for today, since we'll be deploying and deploying and deploying again and again, we'll use Azure CLI just because it will be simple and faster instead of uploading in the portal and then running from there. So we'll run from the extension here. When I work with ARM template, there's always a file that I had in the same folder, and it's AZ CLI. So this is very, very useful because it will give me IntelliSense in my page and help me to do that. So for example, if I type AZ, now I have a bunch of command. So now I know I want to, let's say, create a group. So we'll say group. And when you're streaming at the same time, it could happen that it's a little bit slow. So I want to create a new resource group. So the name will be, let's say, ARM demo. And I will put it in the location, and now I'm using the long name, cool location, east to west, because it match my location. So I want to create a resource group, because when you're deploying things in Azure, you always need to put it somewhere. And a resource group is very useful because it will contain all your resource, and you could apply on it security, permission, and many different things. And that will be all applied on the stuff in it. And when you're done with it, you could take that resource group and throw it away. All the resources inside will be deleted. So you don't need to go one by one and then, there are dependency and stuff. You delete the resource group and magically everything will just get deleted in the good order. So that's cool. So we have ECUS location. So now I want to execute that thing. So because I have the Azure CLI extension, where is it? Just want to show it because I think I didn't. Is it in Azure tool? Azure CLI tool. That's the tool. And I forgot to do a quick link for this one. So I'm sorry, I will paste the long version of it. And I will put that in my notes. So if someone is watching that in video on demand, they will have it. So that's the tool that gives me the IntelliSense. It's in my Azure AZ CLI extension here. So one thing you could do is right click, and now you could run the line in the editor or in the terminal. If you run it, the result, you will have the output in another file. It could be very useful if you're running a query and stuff like that, and then you want to, clean it or do something. When you're just running a command in the terminal is very cool. And by doing the control and this character dash slash, I don't know how to call it, you could execute it. So that's what I will do a lot tonight. So I'm doing that. It's connecting to my Azure and it's running, and now I have my JSON file, my JSON result, not JSON file, but my JSON result say, okay, it was succeed. We created the ARM demo. And now if I go in my portal, I could see I should have ARM. If I was in the same subscription, maybe I was in a different subscription. So this is not useful. I'm in a different subscription. Anyway, I created my resource group. That's perfect. Tonight we don't care about the resource. We care about the ARM template. So we have plenty enough. So now we could be very tempted to say, oh, let's deploy, right? Because we have our ARM template. Now we have a resource group, so we could. No. You need to wait just a little bit, because now it is a very simple ARM template, but one of the best practice is to validate. So it's very simple. What you do is you will do a resource group, and then you will say validate. Come on. Deployment, yeah, sorry, deployment. And then I have the template file. And since it was in the same folder, I don't need to specify anything. So I could just do deploy Azure. That was the name of my file. Do you have IntelliSense of that? That would be cool. No, huh? Okay. So now I'm passing my deployment file and I'm running this. So if I try to run it, so control and the little character, so now it's spinning, and oh yeah, I'm missing my resource group. Yeah, we create a resource group. Frank, you need to use it. You're right. So resource group G, and I'll just copy paste this thing here. So let's clear that so it's a little bit more clean, and let's run it again. Now we have an error, invalid deployment. Why? The account name is invalid. The storage is not valid account name because it's lowercase and it needs to be 324 character. Okay. So we already hit a problem, and we'll keep that in mind, but that's a very common problem. So we'll do display, we'll do here, and let's put 1, 2, 3 just in case. I'm expecting another error saying that this name is already taken. We'll show you how to avoid that just after. So let's do a clean, a clear, and run it again. Whoops, again. What is it? Oh no, okay, it's valid. Yeah, okay, sorry. Error null. This is good. So now we could deploy. So deployment will save some typing here. Instead of validate, it will be create. If I can type correctly, create. We need a name. This is very useful when you deploy. You have a name of your deployment. When you have something automatic in the CI/CD process, you will probably put some kind of date or date time in it. Since we're just testing, we'll just put testing. This is useful. If it fails, you could retrieve the log from that through the portal. You go in your deployment and you get those files. So this is really nice. So now, what did I do wrong this time? What? Okay, it's running. Okay, while this is deploying, we know that having everything, we'll just put it down there. It will take just a few seconds anyway. So we know we don't want to put everything in static. We want some kind of dynamics here. So having a way to inject parameter will help us a lot. So we'll do that. Oh, see, it's done. Yay, so now we have it. And let me just connect in the portal without showing too much. I should have created a secret view. Cool, it's there, I have it. So now I am in the ARM demo, and now I have my storage. It's a little bit small. Let me zoom. Oh, it's already kind of not too small. So we have our storage demo 1, 2, 3. So we create our first resource. Yay! Okay, that was easy, right? And it's not very cool because now if, Patrick want to try it, then it will try to deploy. The name will be storage demo 1, 2, 3, and it will fail because that name is already taken. Why that name is already taken is so important, because there are some resources that need a unique name globally. That name must be unique across everything. So we'll fix that in a few seconds, but now I would like to offer the opportunity to give the name you want. So maybe Patrick will say storage demo Pat, right? Kind of very creative way. So what we want to do is create some parameter. So parameter will be in the, I'm sure you guessed it, parameter section. So we'll add a parameter, and to add a parameter we do arm and then parameter value, this will add the code snippet to add a parameter. So now what I want to do is add the storage name. So storage name. My type will be string. There's multiple different type. If I do this, there's, and I zoom, can we see it? I'm not looking at the good screen. That's why I'm having so much trouble. So we have array, so I could pass an array of object, Boolean, integer, object. This is really cool. You could pass the full JSON thing. Secure object, secure string. You're passing a password. You don't want it to show in the log. Secure string is a good way. There's other way. You could totally use some injection from key vault. So like receiving that in a secure string, so the value of that secret or that password is not even visible in the log or another document that is calling the ARM template. So this is very, very useful. So now for us, string was good. Metadata will be that's worth it. For you, it makes sense. You say, yeah, it's storage name, it's clear, but you should totally put some instruction. And of course, because I'm doing a demo, I'm trying to go fast, my description will be kind of silly a little bit, right? But don't do that. Do real stuff. Don't do like me. Do better. So that's cool. One thing also, people tend to like doing next when they deploy. So try to help them. If you know there's some value that are good enough or whatever, make it like default value. So you could totally do that. So you say, you know what, default value, and it will be storage demo. And also it will give them an example of what you're expecting as a value. So that's really cool also. You could also do, you know what, I want a min value, and we know it was between 3 and 24, so I would say, you know what, I want a 5 as a min value. So I could all do that. And now this parameter here, I want to use it. So to use it, I will go here, I will remove because I want to replace the name, and to tell to Azure, hey, this value, you need to interpret it. You don't need to just apply it. You need to think about it. I will put square brackets. And now I could type. I want to retrieve the parameters. So I will just say parameters. And then I type the name of the parameter I want to retrieve. So this way I will retrieve it. So parameter is the function part of the ARM template, and it returns the value of the parameter name you pass. So that's cool, and I will use the same thing here in my display name. So great. So now I could call my template and just pass the value, but you know, you would see that I could have a lot of parameters, so that's not very useful. I would like to have some kind of parameter file, and that's exactly great. So one thing here, because again I have the extension, I could just go and select, is it showing in my screen? Yes. Here I have select or create a parameter file, so we'll click on that. Whoop, I need to do it again. I want to create a new one. If I add parameters that are required and optional, so right now if I select optional, because I specify a default value, no parameter will be present in my parameter file. So we'll say all parameters. So now it's very small, but I'm suggesting deploy Azure, and by default it suggests .parameters.json. So that's cool. I think it's clear enough. So we'll just do that. Sometimes I do just params, but parameters is good. So now we are now in the file, and I have here my value. That's perfect. If I add 1, 2, 3, so now if I run again the deployment, I will have the same result. The auto-generated part is really, really interesting. If you were starting from a new file, you could also do, it's also possible to do a arm and then do dash parameter, what is it again? I think it's, yeah, arm with the P exclamation point. That will create the empty version of it. But you know, you could always do that. If there's a parameter, if there's a file in the same folder with the same name, that dot params or dot parameters, the extension will ask you, will prompt you, you know, the little notification in the bottom right, hey, do you want me to bind those two? So this is very useful. And here we can see that the file, we have a parameter file. And now let's say I put STO only in my parameter value. I see here I have a problem. So if I check, it will tell me that like I'm not matching my requirement that I set. I said the length must be 5 and now it's only 3 characters, so it's failing. So it kind of does the validation. So very, very, very useful for that. That's a new addition that was added recently, and honestly, it's wonderful. Okay, so now what we want is to call this thing. So here, to add the file, we just need to say parameters, and we'll pass the file. So it was, you know what? Let's go fast here. We'll say rename, copy all, and paste the name. And we'll do the same. Cool. So now if I execute this command here, I should have no error. Yep. I scroll at the same time, I don't see the result. Come on. Why it's all... Okay, it's here. Error null, so okay, I had no error, so let's clear. And now I could rerun that again. It will run applying my parameter. That's also a very powerful thing of the ARM template, is they are omnipotent, meaning that you could run it again and again and again and again, and it will only touch. So by default, it's in mode incremental. So by default, it will only touch the resources that are included. Meaning if I have already, let's say, a database in this resource group, it's not specified in my ARM template. This resource group, this database, sorry, won't get deleted. We'll just leave it there and I will add new resource. If I change the resources that are defined in my ARM template, they, like the deployment, because it's incremental, will just affect those resources. A very nice trick here is, let's say you want to delete all the resources inside your resource group without deleting the resource group, because maybe you spend a lot of time applying security and permission and everything, and like, you know, that was a lot of time, but you want to clean up your stuff. So by deploying an empty ARM template and specifying the mode, the deployment mode, come on, the deployment mode, where is it? The mode. Now you could specify absolute, if I'm not mistaken, or complete. It will delete everything inside. So that's kind of convenient. Complete, yeah, okay. So by going complete, then it will delete everything without deleting the resource group. So that's a kind of a neat trick. By default, it's incremental, and most of, like, honestly, in most cases, that's exactly what we want. So that's why it's not usually present in the parameter, but it's there. This is very cool. A problem, and I mentioned that previously, is if you're trying to run this command and you did follow me exactly, and you're trying to do that on your side, you will fail, because I got lucky. I was the first one deployed, so it works. But probably on your side, because the a storage account needs to be unique, it will fail. So let's fix that on a very simple way. So what we could do is create a variables. We'll create a suffix, right? And we could put some random stuff in it. If it's random, it's not very useful. It will work, yes, every time. But it will, and suffix, sorry, I should have explained, the suffix mean you're adding that at the end, so adding then the suffix to the name of our resource. I will show you how as soon as the suffix is created. But if I do something completely random, then if I'm redeploying, instead of modifying the resource that I already create, this random thing will create another resource. That's not what I want. I want something unique, but is always the same for me. So the trick is, we'll use different for function from inside the ARM template, and that will create an expression. So we need the square bracket, and I will use the unique string. Unique string, if I go over it, it will generate a hash string, so something unique, like a bunch of random of stuff, a hash, based on the information, the parameter I pass. So what I need is find something that is unique to me and will never change. But we have that since my deployment is always in the same resource group. So if I pass the resource group ID, for me, it will be always the same. But if you create a resource group in your subscription, the ID will be different. The name could be the same, but not the ID. So we'll have two different hash. So that's perfectly unique. So we could do that. And we know that I can retrieve the object resource group with the function resource group. So we'll do that. So we'll do see here, sorry, that was part French, resource group. And now what I need is the ID. Don't make the mistake to use the name, because name could be common in many places. Use the ID. So that's perfect. So now I have a suffix and I could use it. Sometime when you are doing big deployment, you may use the ARM template and deploy in two different locations because you want some redundancy. You want the same server and database on two different data centers. Maybe you want one in Europe, maybe one in America. And then so if something happened, you know, you will have a backup, or maybe just to offer a better response time to your user. If you try to do that, then it will fail because it could be in the same. So you could add also if you want, because unique string take as many parameters as you want. So you could say, you know what, I want the resource group and then location. So now I will have a suffix that is unique for a resource group location. Most of the time it's not required, though I in the past encountered a problem where we needed that kind of little tweak. We'll keep it simple for today. So resource group ID, what I'm missing? I'm missing an ending parentheses. Looking quickly through the chat. Just local generate blank template. Yeah, to create an empty ARM template, it's just you type ARM and that's it, or exclamation ARM if you're using the snippet. So that's very easy. Okay, so now what we need is use the suffix, and here we see with the little yellow squiggly, I don't know if squiggly is the real name, but that's how I call those little line. Say, well, the variable is never used. Yeah, okay, let's use it. So the way to put that is to concatenate this file to our name. So we'll use here the function. There's a function. Let's add extra space so we have the IntelliSense. So I have the concatenate function available in ARM template, and concat will just concat as much string as I want. So perfect. So I want this thing in, and I want to add my variables. So again, I use the function variables, and I will use suffix. Oops. So that's cool, but if I start to do that and then copy paste that everywhere, it won't be very clean. Now I need to understand what's happening. A better practice will be to use variables. In fact, variables, that's why they are created, so we could make our code simple to read and use. So let's do that. So I will create a new variable, and we'll call it storage. Our name for a real name. No, actually not. Let's put the full name. So real, and if I write in English, it will look something like that. And now I could just put this here, and if I know I'm going fast, sorry. Right? So now I have my suffix, I have my real storage name that is used, and I will use that here. So now my template is it's much more simple to read. So now if I check that, I say, oh, okay, it's like the storage variable name, and I could go up if I want. Of course, if I have if I have long, then it's a little bit more complex, but not really, because again, Visual Studio Code extension, there's a super nice stuff here, and I love that. Is the template outline, or I call that the Explorer, but you could navigate through your source. So of course, for me, I have very few. My template is very short, but you could navigate to it. It's very small, so you have a list, an expendable tree of resources. So when you have like 600, and trust me, 600 line for ARM template, it's possible. Imagine if you're deploying VM with some storage, network, virtual, public IP, a bunch of stuff, database, like you have a lot of resource described. So that will simplify your scrolling and save those muscle and and your fingers. So just clicking will be much faster this way. So this is cool. So now we have a much simple resource. What else? What can we do? What else can I do? We could. Do you have any questions before I go? Yeah. So that's a good start. That's a very good start to do it. Oh, another way. Okay, let's just do one more thing, and after that we'll go questions, because I just want to show you a few good best practice to help you get started. So let's say I create another storage, right? And this one, we'll call it extra, storage extra name. And my name is, right? So it's the same name as the previous one, and just add extra and still the suffix, and now I could use that here. For some reason, if I have some dependency, let's say I really want to, like maybe storage and storage is not a good sample, maybe it's an Azure function. I would like to have my storage create, oh, you know what, let's do that. Why did another storage? I can do that quick. I can do that. I'm sure I can. That's me, I'm trying to convince myself. So let's do a function. So we'll do ARM, and then we'll do function, and hopefully I have it. Yes, so function, now I have my code snippet. So let's keep the function name for now, and we'll keep everything by default just for now. I want to show you a little bit of stuff. Let's close this so we have more space. So I have my function. So function, just for those who are not used to Azure, is the serverless offer of Azure. So just snippet of code that execute, scale automatically, and you are billed by the second. So very, very convenient and cool way to code or have your solution. So function, it is running in a website, same kind of object as app service. And what's important here, and that's what I want to show you, is those depends on. Because when you're deploying a function, and there's many, it could be logical or it could be more strategic like this, you need the resource group to be, you need to have your storage, because the code need to be somewhere, and you need a service plan that describe how many, the fact that you want something dynamic. So sometimes you have resources and you have dependencies. So just adding depends on, and now using another function from ARM template, that is resource ID, you pass the type and the name of your object that will retrieve the ID. Now I have dependency. So you describe that in the order that makes sense for you when you read. Maybe for you it make more sense to start with the function and then having the service plan or the storage. You say no, I want every component and then whatever. For me, a lot of time I want the big pieces on top and all the stuff that those things needs later on. That's me. You do what you want. The beauty is, for the ARM template on Azure, when you will be deploying, it will read that and it will structure the creation of all resources, and it will even create resources in parallel. So it will speed up your deployment, because maybe you can deploy that database while it's deploying the storage because of those dependencies. So it will speed up your stuff, and that's something you cannot do in a script when you're doing a bash script or a PowerShell script, because you need to plan ahead and say, okay, we'll retrieve that and this, blah, blah, blah. Here, you just write it the way you want, put some dependency, and it will work. What else? I think that was the only point I want to show you that. Yes, so now questions, and we'll see if we go later. I could show you much more complex stuff, pass through it, not coding it, because that will take a lot of time, but I could show you like a more complex, if you want, ARM template. So let's go through quickly the chat. I guess there is nothing for the flow control like for a while. Yes, there's loop you could do. Let's say, for example, you would like, maybe in the dev environment, one VM is enough. If you are in production, you may want, sorry, let me, you may want to have 2 VMs or more. You could also say maybe, and that's the thing I want to show you in the I had prepared on my other template. You could have some conditions. Say, okay, maybe I'm deploying just the database, or the database and the website. So you could have condition. So to do that, what you could do is just add a condition here or copy, and that will help you to loop through different things. You could even do some nested, so the template, and you're using another template, a reference or link template. So this is very useful. Run it in Docker container, but you could deploy a Docker container with that. I'm sorry, I really there's not a lot of oxygen apparently in my saliva. Can you explain the resource Microsoft deployment? Yes. So let's go in my more complex example that I had. So I was telling that, it's very useful to have, close this, close that. So this is my schema, is very long on the side, and here I have a bunch of stuff. So I have many different parameters, as we can see. I have different resource, and I didn't talk about the output. Okay, remember me, I need to talk about the outputs. So here we could see that this is the logo of an ARM template, and it's because I use the type that was asked, the deployment. And if I go there, then we'll see that this resource, it's in fact a deployment. So inside my deployment, I define another deployment. And that's very powerful and useful because now I could deploy another ARM template. So you could have, because when we have a solution, you could have multiple parts. They all being deployed maybe separately, but maybe once in a while you want to deploy everything. So you could have a master ARM template that call all the others. And that will be the way to do it, where you have an ARM template here, and you will pass with, where is it? It's here, the template link, and you have the link. And it cannot be a local file, it must be a link. It could be inline though, if you prefer. But using a link, that way you refer to your other ARM template. In my case here, it's a URL because this thing is in GitHub. So I'm using the other ARM template sitting in GitHub, and now I'm deploying. And now what I do here is I pass the parameter. So I pass just the value that my second ARM template required as an entry point. And I could just, cascade down this way. And of course, dependency work. And in my case, like I mentioned earlier, let's just try to zoom so it's clear. I was using in this one the condition. So if it's not equal to front end, meaning this thing, if you don't want, you could skip it, this second part completely, and not deploy it. So that's very powerful. Hello there, Clarkio, how are you? We created a resource group with Azure CLI. Can we create a resource group with ARM? Yes, you can create a resource group with ARM. For that, you just need, I don't have the snippet for that, but it's possible. However, when you deploy, you won't be able to use this command here, group deployment. You will need to use a new command that is, because this one I think is deprecated or is going to be deprecated. You need to use, whoops. Come on. You need to use instead the AZ deployment. You just swap the two. So instead of group deployment, it's deployment group, if I'm not mistaken. I'm just not sure I have the version. Deployment, create. There's no group. I thought that was group. And now inside of it, you will be able to specify the resource group you want. So very interesting. However, because I use a lot those deployment button, if you go on GitHub, I'm really strong of using that to deploy the ARM template. So if you go on my GitHub, you want to try this project, so by one click it will bring you to the portal. You're in your subscription and you will be able to deploy the entire solution in one click. So this is very useful, but right now this new function is not supported in that process, so that's why usually I don't do that. But if you're using command line instead of using the AZ group deployment create, if you're using AZ deployment create, then you will be able to create a resource group inside. So you could have different resource group, because I know some people say, oh, I want to have all my database in a specific group or stuff like that. The resource group, like I said, it's logical. So whatever makes sense for you, maybe it's life cycle, maybe it's same type, whatever you create. And now this new functionality is possible with the AZ deployment create. Because here in this function, we couldn't, because we need, as you saw at the beginning, I was having an error because I was not specifying the resource group, and you cannot create a resource group inside a resource group. But inside an ARM template, it is possible. I hope it's clear. I feel like in Inception now, too much like. In your opinion, is it possible for a developer to use the portal only and do all the task? Yeah, of course. So there's nothing impossible, just like validating twice before I'm recorded, right? So I need to be sure. There's nothing impossible. Like everything that is possible through the ARM template is possible through a script. So you prefer writing PowerShell script or Bash script or an ARM template or going through the portal. At the end, the result will be the same. The only thing is and that's my point of view. What I like about ARM template is one file. I give that to someone. He could look my parameter file, change the value because, demo Frank, when it's Patrick, doesn't like that. Clarkio will be putting, storage Clarkio instead. All those things. So we just change the parameter file, or maybe it's a parameter file by environment. And now you have one file with a parameter file. You could deploy that. And the deployment, like I said, will be super fast because Azure will maximize and parallelize everything that is possible. That thing, it's not possible through PowerShell or Azure CLI script. And through the portal, you must be really, really quick. But, everything is possible. You can create a VM. You could create all the resources are possible to be created through the portal. At the end, they all use the same API. So there's not something not possible with one. So it's all a question of choice, and that's why it's so cool. Is whatever you like, take it, use it. I'm just here to show you like the power of ARM template, Azure Resource Manager template, and this tool the extension that I think is wonderful because it's speed up the deployment. Not the deployment, but the process of creating those templates. So portal is insufficient. Well, like it's when it's your first time you create something. We all do that. I think we go through the portal because it's nice, it's friendly. You have an interface, so you could read. Sometimes you see, what it is. Like, it bring you to that documentation. Having it will also simplify things. So you could will simplify things. So you could see what's possible, see the options. So it helps a lot in that sense. Yes, when you want to repeat, if your deployment is in the middle of the night, or if you're having a CI/CD, like you don't want to be the bottleneck and go to the portal, but it's still possible. Thanks, Frank. I historically use Terraform, but look to ARM powerful enough. Yep, it is very powerful. The idea behind the Terraform is and the ARM template are the same. It's, same difference. Like we say, like more advanced topic. Any books? There's bunch of documentation. I have one link. Let me grab that in the documentation. That is possible. Like I said, you have all the quick start from there where, let's say, you want to create a website with a database, or maybe it's a cluster of Kubernetes, or maybe it's, like a 2 VM with a load balancer. There's plenty of very common scenario. You could go there, grab the Quickstart template. Of course, you customize it because right away it may not fit 100% your need, but maybe 85%. So you just need to add a little extra, add the policies because maybe you have a very specific naming convention where you work and stuff like that. So you just customize it and you start from there. There's a lot of good video on YouTube available that go deep. Have video on that. There's one coming series of ARM template show coming on channel 9. Stay tuned. On the show is a DevOps show, and we'll have a lot of episode on ARM template, starting with what I show you and going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. So that will be cool also. Is it hard to be a developer? No, like it's fun. I like being a developer. You create tons of stuff. You solve problem. If I create an app service with an ARM template, can I specify which secret is from the key vault? Oh yeah, I didn't show that. Yes. Yes. Where is it? I want to show you that. You're right. So let's say I have some kind of secret parameter here. What I want to do is, I want to save typing. I think it was here. Okay. So what you could do instead, because like if I had let's say a password for like I'm connecting to something, I don't want to put my password in my parameter file because there's good chance that by mistake I check in that stuff and it go then on GitHub, right? Or like in the storage. Like we don't want that. So what you could do instead is use a reference. So here I'm not sharing my screen. Sorry. There it is. Sorry again. So I'm in the parameter file and I had a parameter, an admin password, a new parameter, and I'm using a reference to the object key vault. Here it's the object of my key vault. So when you go in the portal, you go in your key vault, you need to create a key vault. You could do it. You could have a key vault created by an ARM template, but then it will be another deployment. And you will retrieve that ID. So ID is subscription ID, like that's the full ID. And then you put the name and you specify the secret name. This is not your password. This is the name of the secret you created in the key vault. And now deploying that inside the template, when you create your parameter here, I will say, what was it called again? I would say this is, oh no, yeah, I know what I want to do. I want to do this and parameter value. That's my name, and I want to use, I said earlier, secure string, just like that. So now my value won't show up in my logs because of secure string, and won't show up in my Git repo because I'm not even putting the value in it. I'm using a reference. So when I call, then we'll grab the reference and it will be inject inside my template. So very powerful. And thank you a lot who asked. I forgot, my chat is scrolling super fast. It was Mr. Triple B, thank you. Bald Builder. Was not that bad, right? Good question, excellent question, in fact. Okay. Just skipping, you're all chatting. Yeah, Ensile is also a nice tool. I never tried though. Even Terraform, I read a little bit about it, but like for me, I don't know. ARM was clear, kind of a click. Can I use ARM template to destroy resources? Yes, I mentioned that at the beginning. So if you're creating an empty ARM template and you're deploying, so using the Azure deployment, and you specify the mode to be complete, that will delete all the resource group inside, all the resource inside that resource group. Was that the question? Yes. If you want to delete then the resource group, that you will need to do it with the command line. You cannot do it in an ARM template. Oh, maybe. Can you? Not sure. since that maybe it's possible now with that AZ deployment create, I will need to try it. I never try it if it delete the resource group, because I have like a little code snippet that I did where, you know, just to explain that in details, but it was to delete all the resource inside your resource group so you could keep the security and the permission you assign. You're full of good questions, Mr. Triple B's. So he's just teasing us. Yeah. Working with secrets, that's cool. Any other secret apart the key vault? Well, anything that is accessible through the key vault can be used there. So yeah, okay. So what would create a configuration setting name admin password? That would, for instance, key vault, meaning I could access it. Oh, let me read that again. So that would create a configuration setting name admin password. No. So here, when I create, maybe I was not clear. So that's a parameter. So if I need this to connect somewhere, I could pass that secret string. Of course, if then in my, let's say, website, like here I had like, for example, here, that's a function, right? Okay, so that's my function I create. If I put the value here and add a key pair value, like, oh, admin password, and put here in the clear text, yes, it will be available to my security setting. It could be good enough for you. It's been like that for a while. Now a lot are using reference, so you could also pass the reference if you prefer this way. It depends what you need. Yes, so like parameters is to be used, so like it's just a way to pass a secret without seeing it. Yeah, if you then put it here, then like of course in the app setting you will see that. Also, I had one thing I did mention. I want to talk quickly. I know originally it was supposed to be 1 hour, but one thing I didn't talk too much about outputs. I mentioned it was very useful when you are in DevOps purposes. One thing I do a lot when I'm deploying and working some ARM template is I use the output as a debug factor. So I create an empty ARM template and I put all my value I'm trying to test. So if I do again ARM and then output, here I'll have my output 1, it's a string, and now I could say, oh, I want the value of, I don't know, like concat this, blah, 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 blah. I want to see why it's not working. It's complaining that something doesn't work. So I could just, you know, use that here and see why it's not working. So it will be super fast. You deploy an empty ARM template that just contains outputs, and this way you could debug your expression or like your function that you create, concatenation, or maybe you're not retrieving the good resources, but you know, with all the stuff in it, you didn't notice it. So having that, it will be a quick way to find out your mistakes. So that's kind of cool. Can an ARM template create logs? The ARM template by itself doesn't create logs, but when you deploy in Azure, let's go in the portal. So here I did, so I'm in, sorry, I went fast. So portal.azure.com, that's the Azure portal. And now I'm in the resource group. We opened that earlier after deploying our storage account. So here on the left, I have deployments. So if I click on that, I will have the history of all my deployment. And remember, I told you that it was useful to put a name. So here we put testing because we're just messing around, we're between friends and we're just having fun. But in a CI/CD perspective, probably some date timestamp or something that more meaningful. And then you could click on that and see all the information. So deployment complete, you will see the output. There is no output. And you could see all the logs. Come on, show me the logs, Jason. So you see all the information. When you have error, you will see the error return and stuff like that. So you will see the output. It's not like a log, but you will see a lot of information. If you're deploying a VM or trying to deploy some code, then you will be able to go in that specific resource and look the log of that specific resource. For example, when you're deploying a website or an Azure function, since a function is using the app service in the background, creating like we did in our sample, in our ARM template, that's just creating the function app, or like an empty shell for a website when it's a website. Now you need to put the code. To do that, you could add a sub-resource named source control. Let me show you in my complex sample. I have one, so I will just show you that quickly. Where is it? It's here. Okay. So here, I'm in my function app. Okay, so it's a website. I have a bunch of settings that I put there, and I had a sub-resource. So inside my resource, I could put other resources, and that one is type source control. And I put the URL, the repo, the GitHub URL. So that how it will go, grab the code, and then because in app service there's a Git there, it will do a synchronization between my GitHub repo. I use GitHub in this case, but it's any Git, of course, and it will do a synchronization, so bringing the code, my artifact, inside my website. If everything is at the root, then you don't even need to do that. By default, when you're trying to do that, and from GitHub, I mean, it will try to pull all the code. But most of the time you have some kind of structure, so you have like maybe a folder. Let's say let's go in GitHub. You have a structure, maybe something similar to that. Have a specific folder for your deployment stuff, maybe a specific folder for the source, the source of the deployment, and maybe you have some media or documentation or other. So like maybe you have a structure. So the code is not at the root, so that time you need to specify where to find the code, but it's possible then to inject the code. Same thing for a VM. You could have, I forgot the name of the resource, but you have something to specify what to do with the VM once the VM is up. So there's a way to, finish your deployment, if I could say. Yeah, it's true. AZ monitor could help. Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Okay, so can I execute the ARM template from a function? I'm assuming yes. You could, if your function has enough permission. Let's say now that with the PowerShell function, you could definitely do a deployment. You will need to have a lot of access to your subscription you're deploying into, but it could be possible, though maybe it will be, yeah, it will be possible. Should work. I never tried that, but it's possible. Feel like it's possible. You can create resource. I have function deleting resource. It's possible to have function creating resource using like the PowerShell commands. So why not using an ARM template? Yeah. Okay, talking again about the AZ monitor. It's true. GitHub, coolest tools ever. Kind of true, right? It was a big step in the coding Yeah, I know, ball builder, whatever, triple B's. I know. Will be fun to do something together with ARM templates and maybe one of your projects. Tenspin, hey, I'm trying to get Microsoft to allow redistribution of the... I don't know. I don't know. It's a good question. It's out of my scope of expertise or powerness. I don't know. Powerness, is it the word? I cannot help you with that. Sorry. Yeah. So I hope. Whoop, I'm back. So I hope this session was useful. If you have questions, again, I will stay here for like until you have questions. Otherwise, I will let you go. I know for some of you is very late in Europe. You're a real champ. And yeah, and if you have other questions, you could come a lot of time on my stream. I hope I can do that. They didn't tell me I cannot, so I will do some shameless plug. So you can come on my Twitch channel, so twitch.tv/fboucheros. I'm streaming on Wednesday, on Friday. I do deployment. I play on Azure. I have a lot of fun, and we deploy things. Also on YouTube, you can find me on YouTube/fboucheros, and I do a video every about second weeks, and one is coming soon. Strangely, the topic is also ARM template, so you will be already knowing a lot of stuff. But yeah, like a short video, like around 10 minutes. It's supposed to be 5, but it's super hard to do things in 5 minutes, so it's always a little bit longer. But I prefer going completely to the end of what I'm trying to explain to just put some magic. Thanks, Clarkio, for your permission. But as you can see, I did took the permission. How long will this video... So yes, so if I'm not mistaken, this video will still be there, at least for Twitch, it's 60 days or something like that. But the intention is to republish that on YouTube. Do you have the channel, Clarkio? On YouTube? Or otherwise, ask me on Twitter. So Clarkio just put my Twitter account there. So ask me, like, I will share that as soon as it's available on YouTube. Otherwise, it will be available on Twitch on video on demand for a little while, as long as Twitch allowed it. Trying to bonjour, hi. No. ARM, it's not that ARM. It's Azure Resource Manager template. So it's the structure behind Azure. So it's not ARM the processor. Good question. I should have clarified that at the beginning. Sorry about that. And it's not ARM like, this one also. It's really Azure Resource Manager. It's an acronym. Yeah, like YouTube, Microsoft Reactor, cool. So now you have the YouTube link where all those videos are available on that channel. Well, not all, but a lot of them should be available on YouTube a little while after. But like I said, as soon as this video will be available there, I will tweet it. So if you follow me on Twitter, you will know. Cool. Well, I think we just reached the end of the question. So don't hesitate. If you have a question, reach out. I will be super happy. And otherwise, well, looking forward to see you on my channel or on YouTube's. Please subscribe, follow if you're there. And yeah, see you next time. Bye.